What's up, guys? We are back. It's Coach AB alongside my co-host Tom Merck. What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be discussing, does protein powder make you fat? I got this question. It's the 21st century and people still want to know, does protein powder get you fat? So we're going to answer. We're not just going to talk about protein powder today. We're going to talk about protein in general, and does protein powder, and anything protein related make you fat? We're going to discuss that today. But Tom Merck, what's going on, bud?
Not much. I think I'm never going to get tired of that intro. I want to record it and just listen to it.
Making your ringtone, man.
I should. Only when you call, though.
Yeah, that would actually be really cool, man. Imagine that, Tom.
That's pretty much you just saying, "Hey, Tom." So that's your way of doing it. I like it.
Tom, it just flows off the tongue. That's what happens. It flows off the tongue, and it sounds good.
So does excellent.
Yep, Tom has a lot of catchphrases, guys, and excellent is the other one. So that's another one that we will steal.
I don't know how these things stick, but they do. People notice them too. People definitely notice.
Wait, the excellent thing, did that come from The Simpsons, Mr. Burns?
No.
It did.
But I do remember him saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from, actually. I gotta backtrack a little bit. I've been saying that for such a long time, but yeah, even my fiance, she's like, excellent. I'm like, another one join the team.
All right, so let's get rolling with this now. People think that for some reason that protein gets you fat, and I think there's a lot of myths behind that. But before we even talk about anything with that, I really think that we need to cover what protein actually is, because I'm very convinced that people are just confused on what food is what anymore. Most people will think that beans are protein. People think that peanut butter is protein, and that's not the case. So, Tom, what is the actual definition of protein?
So it's a thing, in a simplistic way of explaining it, it is the things or the thing that repairs and builds muscle. Okay, and it's in your body at all times. Even if you don't have a lot of it, you have little, what we would call amino acid pools in your body. So little areas that hold protein, and then your body takes from those pools and it pulls to basically whatever it needs, building muscle, repairing muscle, etc., things like that. So you have those in there at all times. It's like little storage units, and your body utilizes that whenever it needs to, like after a training session. Okay.
Yeah, so exactly. So protein's the building blocks for muscle. But what foods are protein? So anything that usually typically comes from an animal is what's called a complete source of protein. So there's two sources of protein. You have complete sources of protein and incomplete sources of protein. So an incomplete source of protein is beans, because it does have some protein in it, but it doesn't contain all the essential amino acids needed to give your body the building blocks and the raw stuff it needs to make muscle. So this is why when you start exercising, you need more complete protein. So a complete protein, like I said, comes from an animal and contains all of the amino acids needed, all the raw materials needed to make more muscle and protein in your body. Okay, so simple as enough. So lean sources of protein are what we're talking about today. So grilled chicken, egg whites, eggs,
Yogurt,
protein powder. I think I said protein powder. Steaks, ground meats, ground chicken, ground turkey. Did I miss anything? Fish. I totally left out a whole class of protein. But yeah, any type of fish, tuna fish, regular fish, tilapia, doesn't matter. Any types of fish like that. Did I leave anything out, Tom? I feel like I'm forgetting something. I said cottage cheese.
Well, yeah, dairy sources, some fat-free dairy sources, things like that.
Greek yogurt, I said that. But yeah, but that's pretty much what protein is. So when we're talking about is protein going to make you fat, that's what we're referring to, those foods. So should we answer the question first, Tom? I was debating about answering the question first or leading everybody on and letting them kind of figure it out toward the end. But I guess we should talk about
I think we should explain it. We should explain a little bit more in depth.
All right, cool. Because that's my plan, was to really say, is this true at the end? So when you consume protein, and I feel like a broken record because I've said this 100 times, but when you consume protein, you consume the building blocks of muscle, and your body has to heat up a little bit to pull those amino acids out. And by heating up a little bit, your body actually gets a calorie burning effect from that. So actually, when you consume protein, you are technically burning calories to digest that. So technically, the more protein you consume, the more calories you're actually going to be burning versus carbs and versus fat.
That doesn't mean only eat protein, guys.
Yeah, so
It
it's
just
not.
means that protein is making your body work more compared to other macronutrients in the whole eating and digestion process.
Out of a whole source of protein, so let's say you have 100 calories of pure protein with nothing else in it, so not like beans or anything, but 100 calories just protein, you're going to burn off about 30% of those calories in digestion. So you're left with 70 calories essentially. When you consume a carbohydrate, only 10% of those calories are going to get burned off. So you're at 90. And if you consume a whole fat, so let's say like just a pure serving of fat, 100 calories, it's only 1% of that's going to get burnt off in digestion. So this is why higher protein diets have been shown time and again to actually help you to burn body fat and change your body composition. So I guess the short answer to the question is no, you're not going to get fat from protein powder, but I think we should talk about where this actually came from and how you can actually get fat from protein powder. So I guess what it boils down to is most people think that more is always better. Oh, protein's so good for me, so I just need to consume as much of it as you can. But when you're trying to lose body fat, you need to be in what's called a calorie deficit. So you need to be, your body has to be burning off more calories than you're consuming. If you're consuming too much, you're not going to lose any weight. So if you say, okay, I need to eat more protein, and you eat more calories than your body's burning, you're going to gain weight. It doesn't matter if it's from a magical food like protein, you're going to gain weight because you're over that threshold. So most people have no idea if they're in a calorie deficit. They don't know if they're eating at maintenance, above maintenance, below maintenance. So they start exercising. They see an ad online about protein powder or this or that, and they add it to their additional calories that they're having now. So now they're consuming more calories, and that's how they get fat. So I think that this came about from people who just wanted to, okay, I'm going to add protein to my diet. And they just start adding protein in without changing any of the variables. I think I would be correct. Unless you want to rebuttal me, Tom, and say something else.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could even talk about that little experiment you did with your super high protein intake, but you kept your calories at a reasonable rate. So, yeah, I mean, you pretty much boiled it down. If you can only eat 2,000 calories a day and you eat all 2,000 calories from protein powder or chicken breast, you'll still gain weight if you go over that number. It's just the max capacity your body could handle, although it will burn more compared to other nutrients, but it's just not to oversimplify, but it's a matter of calories in versus calories out. If there's too much going in, you're basically filling up a cup until it's spilling over. You want to leave a little bit of space in the cup every day. That's what leads to weight loss or fat loss.
People don't think calories in versus calories out actually works though, Tom.
I can't believe that is like something that I see it a lot with a lot of these like hormonal specialists, quote, online. They're not qualified. They don't have, I'm not even qualified to talk about that. Right. But like, it's like, oh, you can eat whatever you want. Your hormones are messed up. We got to fix your hormones. And I'm like, that's like a slippery slope right there. I'm pretty sure if they eat just like generally more nutritious foods, you don't even have to bring up that word at all. They'll get into better shape if they're consistent with it. But
yeah, I think it also boils down to, when you're really trying to change your body composition, it's almost like people look for the secret pill, right? No matter what that is, if it's protein powder, if it's this, if it's that, they look for the secret pill and look for what's going to get me there faster. And like I've been there before, I've been guilty of that too. It's, when I first started, especially, I made all kinds of mistakes, and I would have fallen prey to that. Oh, you need to, have protein powder and your body's going to change and you're going to gain more muscle that way and lose more fat. So, okay, just pound on the protein powder. But it doesn't really work like that. Like you mentioned, once your cup is filled, if you keep overpouring it, nothing's going to stay in that cup. It's just going to keep overpouring. And that's how you get the love handles, and that's how you get that shape that you don't want. So you need, first and foremost, if you're asking the question, is the protein powder going to get you fat? That is the wrong question to be asking. The question is, how many calories do I need to stay lean? That's ultimately what that question boils
Yeah.
down to. So I guess the answer to the question is no. Short answer is no. Protein powder is not going to get you fat, but it can if you're overeating, period. And
Yeah.
most people forget when they start adding protein powder in or other things in that they don't account for that and just add it on top of everything that you're doing already.
If somebody thinks they're overeating from protein specifically, they're probably very out of touch with their diet.
Very.
I wouldn't want to like point fingers, but I would expect them to not know really anything or not know anywhere like any other foods that are coming in. And I've seen this, like I used to work with somebody years ago who thought that spinach, I'm not kidding, spinach was a fat source. And that's how out of touch.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, Tom, depending on where you get it from, if you get it at an Italian restaurant, it probably is
pretty
a
much
fat
is. Yeah.
sauce
Yeah.
because there's a ton of
Um,
olive oil on
that
that.
that is a fair argument. That is a very fair argument. If you're getting your spinach like drenched in oil, it's pretty much fat at that point with some leaves in it. But if you're talking plain spinach, that is how out of touch people might be. And they need our help more than anything because if you think spinach is a fat source, then we have some like nutritional basics to cover before we even get into grams, calories, things like that. I would expect somebody who is thinking that, oh yeah, the protein's making me fat. All right, well, we got to actually check and see what else is coming into your day because you're probably not eating just egg whites, Greek yogurt, fat-free cheeses. What do your weekends look like? What do you do at night? There's probably other areas to like ask questions about and figure things out.
Oh, for sure, and that brings up another question too. It's like it's just so funny how people are so almost like one dimensional, and we're all guilty of this. I'm saying people, but I'm guilty of it too all the time with everything in life too. But it's like you always ask that one. Well, is this one thing gonna do this? It's like, well, it's not the one thing, like you mentioned. It's a lot of other variables that come into play when it comes to changing your body composition. So it's not always the one thing. But for someone listening to this who is really serious and asked that question, like, does protein powder actually get you fat? Here's what you actually need to do. You need to first figure out how many calories you need to lose fat. And a very simple, like, I don't know who's listening to this on the other end. So hi to you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. Click the links in the description to pick up something to help support us. But regardless of that, for listening to us, what you have to do is just take your body weight, whatever that is, and multiply that by 10. And that'll give you a good, again, I don't know who's on the other side of this, but it'll give you a very, very good baseline of how many calories about you need every day. And that would be your starting point. So you would start there. So let's say I'm 200 pounds. That means I need 2,000 calories every day to lose weight. That should put me in an aggressive deficit. So if after the first week I lose too much weight, then that means those calories were too low. I need to raise them up until I'm losing a healthy amount of weight, which is half a pound to 1 pound of pure fat a week. So that would be my starting point. So I would recommend the same for somebody listening to this. Start there and then worry about everything else from there. If you're losing fat on that, then good, keep going. If you need to change anything, then you could scale up and down after that. So again, very simple because we don't know who's on the other end of this.
Yeah. I would probably say that's one of the more I've seen that that equation, that calculation everywhere. And it's almost like it's tried and true. You can even go 10 to 12. 10 is more aggressive. It'll help you see things quicker. But yeah, 10 to 12 is ideal.
Yeah, if I just dropped my calories to 2,000 right now, I'd probably lose like 10 pounds
You
tomorrow.
probably die. You eat so much food.
You mentioned before wanting to talk about that the experiment that I did. I think this is a perfect time to bring that up.
Yeah.
So I did an experiment. I think it was about 12 weeks I did it for. I wanted to see what type of a difference it would have on body composition if I brought my protein intake super high. So I weigh about 200 pounds. So I'm talking about 2 times my body weight in protein. So 400 plus grams every day. And I kept my calories the same. I didn't want to change anything with my calories. I was in basically a maintenance period where I was not trying to gain weight. I wanted to see if I could ultimately change my body composition, gain muscle, lose fat, but keep my weight kind of the same. And I wanted to see if a higher protein intake would do that. So I did it for 12 weeks. Actually, it might have been a little bit more than 12 weeks. But so I like protein. It was not difficult for me to eat that much protein. It's kind of frustrating when you're like, okay, I had a lot of protein today, and then you look at your, my Fitness Pal or whatever, and it says you have 100 grams left. You're like, oh, another pound of chicken going down. But so I did that for 12. I think it was like 16 actually weeks. So it was 12 to 16 weeks. I did that experiment for, and at the end of the 16 weeks, I was really no difference in body composition versus how much more protein I was having. So essentially, before that, I was probably having about 250 grams of protein. So I added another 150, and I noticed zero benefit having that. The thing that was what kind of like stunk was it took away all those extra calories and protein, took away from carbs and fat that I had. So I wasn't getting any. It's definitely not the healthier way to do things. I was not getting any vitamins and minerals in because I couldn't fit anything else in. I really couldn't have a lot of fruit because my stomach was like so full from all the protein. So I definitely wouldn't recommend that. Don't try that. I just tried it because I'm crazy and this is what I do, and I test things on my body all the
This is
time.
what coaches do. They
Yeah.
find the extremes and test them.
So I noticed no difference in strength, no difference in body composition. And after the 12 or 16 weeks, I said to myself, I said, okay, the only thing that I'm losing here is the money that it's costing me in all this food. So I'm gonna scale it down, and I scaled it back down to where I was, and pretty much nothing happened. It's so the weirdest thing. You would think like I talk about the benefits of protein all the time. So you would think all these other benefits are happening, and nothing happened. So it's kind of like frustrating when you're like, that was kind of like not a waste, but it's like almost like nothing happened. I was expecting something to happen. Nothing happened. So it was just an interesting experiment.
I would expect there to be like an upper like threshold of like where that percentage lies. And you're like a not to mention like maybe if like a brand new person came in and tried doing that and they were able to, it would be nearly impossible to get somebody who's just walking into a gym to commit to doing 400 grams or even 300 grams of protein per day. They'd be like, remember, some of these people don't even know what protein is. So that might be an impossible experiment, but you're like a resistance trained individual with like years under his belt. I would be like, man, well, it's crazy though, because 400 grams a day for like almost 16 weeks, that's a good enough amount of time to actually see if something works. That's a long time right there.
And I didn't miss a day. I didn't miss a day. I was having a ton of protein shakes and just basically chicken all day. And like I said, it was really disappointing at the end to say like nothing happened. There was like zero. I was like, this was just a waste of like money. Ultimately, what it comes down to.
Is that the highest your protein's ever been?
Yeah. For that long of a period of time,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Like I said,
Lot.
it didn't do much. I got blood work done toward the end of it, and my vitamin B was through the roof because that's protein's very high in vitamin B, so that was through the roof, and it just wasn't. I don't know. I didn't feel any different, so it was kind of like a waste. But again, it's a good experiment to test on yourself. So you have to kind of find that number that works for you. I think there's a minimum amount of protein that you need, and you have to find that number for you, and a maximum. I think my maximum is 250. I don't think I get anything more out of 250 than I would out of like 280 or whatever. If I want to eat more for that day and I want to have more protein because I like it, then I would. But there's no benefit of going over that. And I think for me, the bare minimum I can have every day is about 200. For me, it's like a range. What about for yourself, Tom?
I'm actually experimenting with the lean body mass formula. So whatever your lean body mass is, have that number in grams of protein per day. So I'm at about 170 grams, 180 grams per day. I'm trying to see if that does anything. I really want to see if and I like protein like yourself. So like if we're talking 400 grams, I'll find a way to get there. Like I could eat chicken all day. I could have steak all day, shrimp, like Greek yogurt. Love Greek yogurt. All the protein sources, meat, fish, dairy. I'm a fan of all of them. I like them all pretty much. And I love protein shakes. So those are just great. You could add literally anything to them and have them be like delightful. But my protein's on the lower end right now and my carbs are high, and I'm just trying to like experiment with how I feel with training. But I think my range is like probably like 170. Like anything lower than this, I'm like, that's not going to do much for me. And I think the max I'd probably go to I don't know if I get anything over like 230-ish grams. Like I would want to know if it like helps my hunger at all too, because I'm
Well, that's
usually
the
like,
thing too. It definitely does help your hunger. So protein keeps you fuller longer for
yeah,
sure. And that definitely, when your protein intake is that high, you are not hungry at all.
yeah.
Well,
I
like I
would
was,
want to know if there's a number for me, like 300. If 300 is my hunger shut off, even in the fat loss phase, cool. Let's give it a go. But I want to see if on the lower end of the spectrum, where's that lower end where my hunger is like significantly higher? Obviously total calories play a big play in this too, but
well, it's funny because we kind of experimented with two opposite things. So you tried to see the
yeah,
minimum amount you could take, and I tried to see the maximum. But and of course, the answer always kind of lies in the middle, right? That's always like the
yeah,
answer. But it's so funny, and it brings up a good point. It's like what the general, Food Administration talks about is getting like 50 grams of protein a day. For 50 to 70, I think is like the bare minimum that they require. That's like nothing. My son gets 100 grams of protein every day, and he's 4. So, and people are probably asking like, what does he do? Well, he loves to eat, and he has a ton of milk every day and skim milk, and he's my son's crazy. But again, like I just think that that's way too low, especially for an adult, someone who's older, who's entering that stage in their life when they're 40 to 60, and their bodies are just naturally like. I don't want to say declining because it's like a really bad word to use, but naturally your body's getting rid of muscle at that stage. So in order to hold on to that amount of muscle, you need more protein for sure. So
yeah.
the argument is out there like, oh, you don't need that much protein. But again, I think a bare minimum is around, that range. For a male, with that range that we're in, that 170 to, 250 range, again, just depending on the person. And then for
Okay.
females, I would definitely say at least bare minimum 100 grams at minimum. And then I would say max would probably be about 150. Again, just depending on the person, but just a
Yeah,
general
that could change based on
rule.
whoever. Yeah,
Just a
that
general.
50 to six, what is it, 50 to 70 range?
Yeah.
That's kind of low. That's,
Pretty low.
they're definitely not active individuals though. They can't be resistance trained or anything, right?
No, that's just a regular
That's
person. But even
sedentary.
still, yeah, even
Yeah.
still, I still think that's too low anyway. Remember, protein has like we said, a thermogenic effect. So even if to keep those persons, what do they say? What's the average amount of calories somebody's supposed to consume? 2,000 a day? Isn't that like what they say?
Honestly, it's probably I would I mean every on the back of every nutrition label, it's like this is based on a 2000 calorie diet. I think most people are eating well over 2000 calories
Oh, way
on
over.
average every day, or even on the weekly average, your daily average is definitely over 2000.
I
I
love
think
people
especially
like
today.
so we do a lot of nutrition consults, right? And I love when we get people who are like, "No, I don't eat a lot all day," and then this happened to me so many times, and I love like calling people out on it because they really think like, "Hey, look, I'm not eating anything," and generally when they say they're really not eating much, but when you punch it in the calories, so I'll never forget one day I was talking to a woman and she's like, "Listen, I don't eat more than 800 calories a day." So, okay, that's impossible. There's no way you're eating 800 calories every day. Impossible. What'd you eat yesterday? So we start plugging things into my fitness pal, right? And at the end of it, I'm like, okay, so you said you were eating 800 calories every day. And then I show her like my fitness pal and it was up to 2,800 calories.
Oh my
She's like,
god.
oh my God, I can't believe that. And again, it goes back to a lot of the things we said. Yeah, you're having a salad for lunch, but the salad's 1,100 calories in itself. And so people forget, and people generally have no idea. Like, a couple things that need to be taught in schools has to be nutrition. I
Yeah.
definitely think that people should be taught nutrition in school, along with
Yeah.
financial health. I think that those two things are very, very important to be taught in schools because most people just don't, they're just not aware of it. But as soon as you become aware of it, that's when you can start to say, like, wow, okay, now I know that my salad for lunch is not as healthy as if I was to have this instead. But that nutritional health goes a long way in
Yeah.
saving your body, in the long run. Because remember, cancers, diabetes, all these health issues and these comorbidities that people suffer from, it all boils down to your nutrition. It really does. I mean, your nutrition is your food your fuel that you put into your body. So it boils down to that. And not one, and this ties back into the question of the day is, does protein powder get you fat? It's not going to be one specific item that's going to make or break your health, your fitness, getting you in shape, not getting you in shape. It's going back to the overall basics. And sometimes it's hard for us as trainers to, keep saying the same thing because especially trying to compete with social media out there, You
Oh
know,
man.
me and Tom, we do squats, but our glutes are not as good as a lot of the females on Instagram. So it's very hard for good coaches to get traction out there because it's just everybody's trying to sell a product. No one's talking about what we're talking about right now. No one's talking about that. They're talking about other things and eating raw liver and think like that's not going to do anything for you. But it's just it's this is the creative fitness and this is why we're here, Tom Merck.
Hey, listen, that is literally what it is. We're not pushing. We have nothing to push. We have no agenda. We actually, and obviously it's going to sound weird because I'm saying it and I work here, but like we actually care about people. So you can't just be like, oh yeah, cut your carbs out for the next 2 weeks. You're going to see great results. Of course you're going to see great results. You're eating like a third less of your food income. Yeah, they're going to see great results. And then the other fads like eating raw food. Listen, as a nutrition coach, no, just no. One, absolutely not. Like nobody's gonna want to be like, oh, honey, I'm gonna make some dinner today. Plop a raw piece of chicken on the plate. Like, who's first of all, that's not normal in today's day and age. It's getting more normal, but it's not normal.
Scary.
What's that?
It's scary.
It really is. I've seen like multiple Instagram accounts, but like the thing with all these like crazy things, I do very like flashy training. It's really not that flashy, but I do some novel training stuff. And the people I see on Instagram, they're doing like the weirdest things, like hanging upside down, doing like a farmer's carry underwater. I'm like, that is so unnecessary. It's to get views and attention, and it's essentially a money grab, really. That's really what it is. It's all the flashiest things. But when people like us go on, like a podcast or wherever, or on social media, and then we're like, hey, you should probably find a way to eat balanced, nutrient-dense meals throughout your entire day and be in a little bit of a calorie deficit, and you're going to lose weight. If somebody would look at that and be like, that's boring. Who the hell are these guys? I'm gonna go eat raw liver. Forget
Yeah.
these guys. It gets lost in the sauce because it's not the flashiest or sexiest answer. A lot of what the fitness industry is it depends on a certain thing and it depends on the person. You know.
And I'm truly convinced too, and I said this I think on the last podcast, but I'm truly convinced too that people think I want to diet, I need to suffer. I need to eat
Yeah.
rapid food to lose weight. That's essentially it's like a stigma that comes with fitness. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to go to and the like treadmill cardio. It's like
Yeah.
I don't want to go to the gym. I have to run first before I lift weights. And it's like it's all this misinformation out there in the fitness industry, and it's really bad. It's just really really bad. So we're here spreading the good word out to everybody on what they need to do. So to answer the question, circling back, does protein powder get you fat? No. What's going to get you fat is not tracking your calories. That's what's going to get you fat. So start with what we said earlier, body weight times 10. That'll give you a rough baseline of where you need to start. And then just adjust week to week. If you don't want to be bothered with any of this, click the link in the description below and we will help you out. Be on the other side of that. But until next time, Coach AB and my co-host Tom Merck, and we're out.
Peace.
You said it today, Tom. Good job.
I did.